In episode 3, a boy named Teddy was arrested down in Mechanical for the graffiti, JL, Juliet Lives. This is a big deal because the kid's a teenager. And after he gets arrested, Shirley holds kind of a town hall meeting where Teddy's mom shows up and says that Teddy did it, and she supports it. What they're worried about, though, is that Judicial is going to make Teddy an example. It's become quite obvious to them that Mechanical is getting punished for what Juliet did, and they're not going to stand for it. And Shirley is spearheading this. This was orchestrated by Bernard, who is up at the top, and he meets with Judge Meadows. He wants to discuss the order. She read the order years ago, and she doesn't remember a lot of it, but one of the things she does remember is the fact that in an event of a failed cleaning, prepare for war. Also, you're supposed to crack down on graffiti if it supports a rebellion or it glorifies the person who failed to clean. And the suggestion is to blame Mechanical for this. Rally the silo against the down deep, and then crush that rebellion. This, however, this is a tricky situation because Juliet is from Mechanical. It's also a tricky situation because neither Judge Meadows nor Bernard have ever dealt with this. None of them have. While the order says what to do, it's unclear if it'll actually work. Bernard, though, has already taken steps to follow the order. He tells Judge Meadows that they arrested a boy down in Mechanical for the graffiti. They didn't catch him on camera because most of the cameras below 120 have been knocked out. He figures that Juliet somehow discovered that there were cameras and she told the others, so they don't have video of this. They were just tipped off. One thing's kind of bothered Judge Meadows, and it's the fact that she met Juliet twice, and Juliet didn't really seem the type that would want to go outside. Bernard says she was caught with a red-level relic. I mean, it only had a 200-year-old cleaning video that she flashed on the screen for a few seconds, but other than that, I don't know what she wanted with it. I destroyed it. Judge Meadows then confirms with Bernard that Juliet actually said the words, "I want to go outside." And Bernard says yes, that's exactly what she said. Judge Meadows then tells Bernard that they need to think outside the box with this because this is a weird situation. They can't just follow the order word for word. So she orders him to release Teddy, show some mercy. Meadows then turns to leave, but she stops at the doorway, turns back to Bernard and says, "Juliet went to Silo 17, correct?" When Bernard confirms this, Meadows asks, could she survive in there? And Bernard tells her that's doubtful. I mean, that silo's been dead for a long time. Before I made you my shadow. And that was 25 years ago, so we get a timeline on how long ago that rebellion took place. This also means, though, that Judge Meadows and Bernard are well aware that there are more silos out there. Meadows goes to leave, and even though she ordered Bernard to let Teddy go, Bernard's going to do it, but he's going to do it his way. He meets with Sims, and he asks about the two people that helped Juliet, Patrick and Danny. Sims tells him that they're in seclusion, and they're waiting for the, quote, medication. The medication quite literally makes you forget. But Bernard is going to use this to his advantage. He tells Sims to go to Patrick Kennedy and convince him to start a riot in the down deep. And the way they're going to do that is using that medication that makes you forget. Because Patrick Kennedy has been a mess since his wife died. A medication that makes you forget would absolutely be something that somebody who's in pain would want. He'd want to forget that pain. And Sims tells him that we can make you forget way, way, way before you ever met her. All you have to do is go down there and light the match. Sims then goes to an old retired raider who's the best shot in the silo. This guy's won awards for it. And he tells the raider that he's being sent to the down deep. And while he's supposed to post up and be security, his real goal is to send a message using his particular set of skills. Sims then sends both Patrick and this raider, a guy named Reginald Smalls, to the down deep, and he waits. He waits for Shirley and her group to demand justice for Teddy, and that's exactly what happens. They show up, they demand that Teddy be let go. Hank, along with Knox, are trying to qualm this storm, and that's when Patrick does his part. He lights a Molotov cocktail, he throws it. This incites panic, which allows Reginald to open fire. It's unclear if he meant to do this, but Reginald does hit a target. Unfortunately, though, it's Cooper. And this is devastating to Shirley, Knox, and everybody who knew him, because they know that Cooper was just an innocent bystander who actually, in that moment, was trying to stop Patrick Kennedy from throwing the Molotov cocktail. Now, while all that is going on in the down deep, up top, Judge Meadows isn't quite sure that she can just take Bernard's word for it that Juliet wanted to go outside. So she ends up meeting with Paul Billings and asks him about his report on the situation. And he tells her that right now he's pretty much met with everybody, and they're all keeping the same story, that Juliet asked to go outside, but it's kind of hearsay. They're all really just going on Sims and Bernard's word. Nobody else actually heard her say it. There is one other person that Billings has to meet with, and then he's closing his investigation. Meadows encourages him with going through in that last interview, and then she seems to send him on his way, but he stops and says, "I have to tell you, I have the syndrome." Meadows nods and says, "I know. Sims let me know that they're willing to make an exception, and I agree with it." She goes on to explain to Paul that she doesn't think that they should just follow the pact or the order, all because of some preconceived notions, because humans weren't made to just live in a silo. This does seem to kind of make Paul a little more comfortable, and later that day he does meet with the final person that he has to talk to about what happened with the Juliet situation. After he goes through with this interview, he's actually convinced that Juliet did not ask to go outside. And upon conclusion, he runs up to tell Judge Meadows. He tells Judge Meadows that the last raider he interviewed said that she was just focused on doing her job. And if the other raiders said that she wanted to go out, then that's what she said. That put a seed of doubt in Paul because he remembers bringing Juliet up the stairs, and she said that she didn't say she wanted to go outside. And that moment, he didn't know if he could believe her. Paul's pissed because in the pact it clearly states that if there were doubts on somebody saying they wanted to go out, then an investigation needs to go down. But there wasn't one. Meadows tells Paul that she'll take it from there, and then Paul heads back to his office where he gets a call from Hank about what happened in the down deep. Hank's pretty upset about all of this. So when Paul asks, "Do you need anything?" Hank says, "Yeah, we need you." Hank knows that there's unrest going on with his people, especially with Shirley. Now, with Coop getting killed, it's only going to ignite it even more. Knox also knows this, so he meets privately with Shirley and he tells her, "We can't keep doing it the way that you want. I want to know the truth as badly as anybody else, but the way you're doing this is a recipe for disaster." And a frustrated Shirley asks, "All right, well then how would you do it?" Knox asks her if she remembers when they were kids and they used to explore way in the down deep. I'm talking that tunnel that was hidden with all the graffiti that eventually led to that giant drill. Shirley tells him, "Yeah, I remember. Why?" He tells her he finally thinks he knows what that giant wall of names means. Back with Meadows, though, after finding out that Bernard probably lied to her, she has a pretty emotional response to it. She plays an old home movie. It's not her home movie. It's just somebody's home movie, but it's kids playing outside. It's really emotional for her. She collects herself, though, after this, when Bernard shows up to tell her exactly how he's going to orchestrate her actually going outside. She's fine. He tells her that he's going to shut down the servers for, quote, routine maintenance, which will include shutting down the cameras. He'll operate the airlock. It'll give her 5 minutes to get over the hill. And then after that, he has to reactivate the screens. But he does ask her, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And her answer to that is, "When do I get my suit?" Because she doesn't have one. Bernard tells her that they're going to have to make her one, and he starts taking the measurements. And as he's doing this, I'm just going to say there's some sexual tension going on. You get the feeling Bernard probably writes a little bit of Judge Judy fan fiction in his spare time. Meadows, though, isn't having it. She confronts him about the fact that he didn't let Teddy go when she told him to. He waited until a mini rebellion started so he could squash it. And then she confronts him on the fact that Juliet Nichols didn't actually ask to go outside. To that, Bernard doesn't even say anything. He just grabs the measurements and then he leaves. One person in the silo that we haven't talked about is Juliet's dad, who's been handling the whole situation really well. Since the events, he's been going to these gardens and kind of just sitting there with his thoughts. But one night he goes there and there's another woman there. And she explains that she's there because her and her husband are once again up for the lottery, and she's really excited about it. She really wants to be a mom. Dr. Nichols starts telling her all about being a parent, how great it is, and how special those moments are. All the while, he never reveals who he is. So when she introduces herself as Phoebe Wells and he introduces himself as Dr. Nichols, she's mortified because everybody knows who Dr. Nichols is. More importantly, everybody knows who Dr. Nichols' daughter is. And the only reason that Phoebe is up for this lottery is because of what Juliet did. So it's a little bit of catch-22 for her. But Dr. Nichols assures her that it's okay, and he wishes her nothing but the best. The next day, when he gets to his office, he finds out that Phoebe has been approved. Kind of. It's the bait and switch. They want Dr. Nichols to take out the placebo birth control, making Phoebe think that she's able to conceive, but all the while, she actually can't. This pisses off Dr. Nichols. So when Phoebe and her husband come in to get the birth control removed, Dr. Nichols takes out the placebo, but then he takes out the actual birth control as well. And then finally, over with Juliet in the other silo, Silo 17, she starts to slowly get this mystery man to warm up to her. He tells her that his name is Solo, because he's solo. And he tells her exactly what happened in his silo. There was a guy named Ron Tucker, and he didn't clean. Instead, he wrote lies on the camera, and then he went around the corner out of sight. And this made people think that it was safe to go outside. This spurned what Juliet saw, because all the people never saw him die. This terrifies Juliet. She suddenly realizes that what happened in this silo could easily happen in her silo, and she could be to blame for it because they didn't see her die. So she needs to get back ASAP. She starts looking all over Silo 17 for a suit, but she's unable to find one. When she returns back to Solo, he had left the vault. He actually left her some food, but then he went back in. Juliet, who is famished, is just happy to get the food, and they start making small talk again, and she explains why she decided not to clean, how she found out it was all bullshit. What tipped her off was the birds in the video. When she got outside, she saw birds moving exactly the same way she did on a computer screen in the silo. And that's when she realized, this isn't real. She then asks him, though, why are you alive? And he tells her, if I wasn't alive, who would guard the vault? She says, no, how long have you been in there? And he once again doesn't answer. He just tells her that he does his job and he keeps the door shut. But Juliet points out that people have clearly tried to get in. And there are bodies in the hallway that clearly aren't as old as the others. So, what happened? But Solo doesn't answer. Juliet realizes she might have pushed him a little too far, so she starts thanking him for the food. And he says, I didn't do it to be nice. I did it because if you ate the food, I'd know that you were real and I wasn't imagining you. Juliet decides to leave Solo alone and go catch a nap, but she's woken up a few hours later to loud music. When she goes back to Solo's vault, he's excited because he has a great idea. Use a firefighter suit. Initially, Juliet doesn't believe that a firefighter suit will work, but Solo reminds her that the suit that she actually used to get to the silo that she's in wasn't designed to be outside either. There's only one problem, though. Getting to the floor that have the firefighter suits is going to require Juliet to go underwater. This is doable, though. She just needs to create a device that will pump air down below. But she's going to need Solo's help to do that, which means convincing him to come out of the vault. Solo, though, is totally against leaving the vault. And Juliet understands, but she's also frustrated because she needs this guy's help. And she pleads with him that if he helps her, they might be able to stop what happened in his silo from happening in hers. Still, though, he tells her, I can't leave. Juliet knows this guy's been through some stuff. There's graffiti carved into the wall that says we will get in sooner or later. So him being hesitant to trust Juliet is understandable. And she tells him, all right, well, thanks for the food. I'll catch you around. That changes everything. The fact that she's not adamant about getting into the vault and she's willing to just let him be, it all changes Solo's mindset. And he decides to actually come out of the vault. He's still extremely skittish, though, and Juliet recognizes this, but it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.